Hello, hi everyone. I'm Courtney Kalbach. We're going to start our instructional technology webinar soon. Take some time, if you can right now, to introduce yourself in the chat. We are the instructional technology coaches in Red Clay. I'm just going to share some information with you before we begin. So first, let me just show everyone our instructional technology page. So this is our instructional technology page in Red Clay. It's on inside Red Clay. So you'll go to working here, instructional technology. We have some announcements right here, like quick links to announcements, stuff that people might want or need right away. And then over here we have our help center. So this would give you immediate help on stuff that you need right away. Like if you're having trouble with Smart Notebook or you have one of the new smart panels and you don't know how to use it, you can come over here to the smart part of our instructional technology page and learn more about that. There's stuff about Chromebooks, Google, and if you click professional development, this is where all of our professional development opportunities are. We have a bunch of instructional technology nights again. There'll be PD for smart panels for the teachers in grades K through 2 who got new smart panels. We have a couple of online professional developments like the webinars. We have a Dreambox webinar. And then we also have our conference down here at the very bottom. So you can sign up in DSC for the conference, even though we don't know all the specifics quite yet, but you can still register. We are using a new tool. You might have heard of it before. It's called Pear Deck. So we used Pear Deck to make this presentation. Pear Deck is a website or an add-on for Google Slides that you can create presentations that then your students could follow along with, and you could get like some answers from them, like almost like an every pupil response way of getting answers. So we used it by going to Slides. We got the add-on Pear Deck. And once you get Pear Deck, then they give you some different slides here that you can add into your lesson. So you could add these in and you can customize them, and then students interact with the slides. So I'm going to press Present with Pear Deck. So you could open a new tab. You can look at the webinar screen on YouTube, or you could open a new tab, or do both. And here's the website, joinpd.com. And you're going to enter that code. Okay, and then once you enter it, then you'll be able to see the slides the same way that I am on the screen. And then you'll come up, as we go through, one of the interactive slides will pop up on your screen, and you can interact with the activity on the screen. Okay, so this would be what I would be showing to my students. I'm going to press open the teacher dashboard. So this is the teacher dashboard. So I would interact with the slides here. I would like change them, and then I'll be able to see your student responses as well. This is an introduction to blended learning and the SAMR model, transforming student learning using technology. So Karen is going to start. Are you there, Karen?
I sure am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yay. What do you know? It's working. Okay. So,
I know.
well, it's pretty cool. So, welcome everyone. If this is the first time that you're joining one of Courtney's and my fabulous webinars, then just to explain a little bit what's happening here, Courtney and I are actually in the same building today, though I am down the hall. We're working on trying to get one of those great big microphones so we could possibly sit at the same computer and present together. However, with two microphones going in the same room, the interference on the microphones gets to be a little bit too much. So we are down the hall from each other. What's really cool about this process, though, is that we can have speakers join in from around the district so that we can have people talk right from their own classrooms and join the webinar, just like you are doing today in a view capacity. So let's talk about what is blended learning. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It's definitely one of those key buzzwords when we're talking about one-to-one instruction. And it's kind of, I think, what's changed the playing field for differentiated learning. You know, I think back to when I was standing in front of a fourth grade classroom and I would have 28 students and I would try and meet all the different needs of my kiddos every day. And I would think, my goodness, how can I possibly divide myself out so that I'm able to meet everybody's needs or make myself over again 6,000 different times, right? So that there's more versions of myself than there are students. And we all know that that's really just not feasible. So I think for the first time, maybe since differentiated instruction came to conception, that we actually can do it. And I think that we can do it fairly well using technology. So that's where the blended learning comes in. So, you know, there's some great definitions out there with lots of words, and I kind of get lost in them myself about part of instruction takes place in a brick and mortar building while another part takes place online, and that students are able to have control over place, pace, time, location, all those good things. But I think when we actually stop and we boil it down to what is blended learning, it's right as it indicated there on the screen. It's a classroom approach to education, and it's giving us more time to teach. It's giving us teachers better capability to meet the individual student needs, and it increases meaningful face-to-face time with students. Well, if part of our instruction takes place online, how on earth does that happen? So, Courtney, if you don't mind advancing to the next slide, we can take a look at least two different models of blended learning. There's probably about 7 of them out there, but these are two that are definitely feasible for us to manage in a classroom setting. So the first one there in pink is the flipped classroom. And what that means is you set yourself up for success to teach the next day by asking students to get a little leg up on the content area. So in a flipped classroom setting, you're sending them home with a video maybe to watch, or an article to read, or a chapter to pre-read. Or I've seen some teachers in the district even create PowerPoint slides or Google Slides where they narrate the slides. And it's actually like a little mini lecture that the teacher provides for homework. And the students can watch and rewind, take notes, rewind, review, listen again, and hear it over and over and over again as they continue to do their homework. This way, when the students come to class, the teacher isn't spending the entire day providing background information, but is able to move forwards knowing that the background information has been laid in the foundation and build from there. So that's what we would consider a flipped classroom. The other one, or the other model that we're going to talk about today, is called station rotation. And station rotation might seem like something you would hear more about in an elementary setting. After all, we do centers and do rotations and that sort of thing when kids are younger. So for secondary, that might seem like a little out there, but let's think about it for just a second. You're going to see that there's 2 different kinds of station rotations, and that's because blended learning is continuing to evolve, just like instructional technology and technology does daily and in our lives itself. The first model on the left shows different kinds of rotations in a classroom. So you would see students that are collaborating on maybe an activity. So maybe you have a project that they're working on collaboratively together, maybe in sets of 2s or 4s. So they're working in one area of the classroom. The next area is showing a teacher working with a group of kids. So maybe they're targeting some students that they've noticed are struggling um, on a skill. So if I was teaching math, maybe it's solving for X. If I was teaching a foreign language, maybe it's a tense or sentence structure. So we would have the small group working with the teacher on something that they identify as needing particular help with. And then we have the independent work where students are working independently on something. And it may be or may not be on technology. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's responding to questions. Maybe it's creating a slide or a presentation on something. But they're working independently. And then the final station might be a definite online station where students maybe are working through something like Khan, or maybe it's something you've developed in Schoology where you're asking them to respond to something in a discussion, or you've created a little mini formative quiz that they're going to take independently at their computer. So that's definitely one kind of station rotation, right? Where you have the teacher and the teacher's pulling a small group and others are working meaningfully in the classroom. Now, if you're asking how do we get more face-to-face time with those students? Well, one, we have the small group where it's one teacher and maybe only 4 or 5 instead of one teacher and 28. And likewise, in some of those stations, maybe collaborative or independent, or the online station, much like the flipped classroom, maybe there's been a video that has been created by the teacher where you're actually giving verbal instruction. Maybe a webinar that you've created, you've saved, and they're playing and watching and listening. Either way, it becomes meaningful and face to face because it's you and you're the one that's talking to your teacher, to your students, and they're getting to see you and hearing you present or teach on a topic. So that's one variety of station rotation. Another variety, which is similar but slightly different, would involve, and I'm not sure, Courtney, if I actually had that on that slide. I may not have. So I'm just going to kind of talk about it, and as you see the slide up, you can kind of visualize it. Where the small group is purposeful and definitely planned for. They have extended it. The Christensen Institute that kind of cultivated the whole blended learning theory into more of a coaching opportunity, so that maybe a little less formal than a small group instruction. But teachers would be observing and walking and interacting with students as they work in the smaller groups, and then pulling kids for a coaching session. So a little less planned, a little less structured, but just as meaningful because on the fly you're noticing that a student is struggling with fill in the blank concept. Okay, so that's station rotation.
So this is one of the interactive slides actually. So on if you logged into the Pear Deck, you should get one of these interactive slides that now you can drag your dot to show if you're ready to learn more. So drag it to the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Hopefully we get thumbs up. And I'm opening the teacher dashboard. So now on the teacher dashboard, I could see if anybody responded. So I'll just share with you real quickly the teacher dashboard so you can see it. There it is. So here's the dot. So that's how it looks for the teacher. Okay, so now this is into SAMR. Is that okay, Karen?
Yep, we're
Anything?
good. Rock and roll.
anything? Okay. All right, so this is a video, and I hope that it will play on your end.
Every day, teachers are designing activities to target higher order thinking skills in order to engage students in rich learning experiences. But integrating technology adds a whole new layer to teaching and learning. How can technology transform your learning design? Dr. Ruben Fuentedura developed the SAMR model as a way for teachers to evaluate how they are incorporating technology into their instructional practice. You can use SAMR to reflect upon how you are integrating technology into your classroom. Is it an act of substitution, augmentation, modification, or redefinition. Dr. Puentedura likens his model to moving up a ladder. The model includes a dotted line that represents the threshold where you shift from using technology to enhance learning to using it to transform learning. Transforming learning promotes higher order thinking skills, such as analyzing, evaluating, and creating, which are essential to Common Core state standards and 21st century learning. So, how can you teach above the line? Let's take a look at an example of a classroom task and how it evolves through the lens of SAMR. In substitution, technology acts as a direct tool substitute with no real functional change to the task. For example, take creative writing. What if you had students write a story using a word processing program? In this case, students are substituting a handwritten story for a typed story. The task is the same with no real change in student engagement. In augmentation, technology still substitutes, but with some functional improvement. What if you took the same creative writing assignment and had students use a word processing program? They could use features such as spell check and tools for formatting. Again, the story writing task is the same, but the technology augments it with enhanced productivity. In modification, technology should allow for significant task redesign. Take the same creative writing assignment and have students use Google Docs to write their stories. Students can then share these stories with peers and provide real-time feedback. Here, technology has significantly modified the original task by introducing the benefits of student collaboration. At the top stage, redefinition, technology allows for the creation of entirely new tasks that were previously inconceivable. What if students transform their written stories into multimedia productions? After creating storyboards, students film scenes, edit clips, and add music. They can publish the videos and receive feedback from voices across the globe. In this case, technology redefines the story writing task to include media creation, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. So, how can you use SAMR to reflect upon transforming your learning design? Puentedura offers reflection questions to help you move up the SAMR ladder and shift how you are designing learning experiences. For instance, ask yourself, what will I gain by replacing the older technology with the new technology? Have I added an improvement to the task process that could not be accomplished with the older technology at a fundamental level? Does this modification fundamentally depend upon the new technology? How is the new task uniquely made possible by the new technology? These are just a few of the questions you can ask yourself as you evaluate the design of a classroom task, and consider that not all technology integration is created equal. Ultimately, SAMR can help you evaluate your use of technology and design tasks that target higher order thinking skills, engage students in rich learning experiences, and impact student achievement.
Okay, so we wanted to show that video because we thought it really just quickly showed you exactly what SAMR is about. Um, Blended learning is more about the classroom environment and how you're going to set up your classroom, where SAMR has to do with the different tasks that you're asking students to accomplish, like the actual lessons. Um, Here's some more guiding information when you're thinking about SAMR. So this is the ladder over here. You start at the bottom, substitution, augmentation. So you're still enhancing the learning experience by adding in technology. But then you come to transform the lesson when you're modifying and redefining the lesson using technology. So, SAMR is a guiding framework for evolving your current practices to transform learning using technology. It helps the teachers evaluate the effectiveness of their technology implementation and design tasks that are authentic, student centered, and target higher order thinking skills. It's all stuff that we think about and we do when we are creating lessons and activities and tasks for our students to do in our classroom. SAMR talks about how the actual tool is being used by students. It's what the students are doing with the technology. And we like these questions at the bottom and in the pink over here. What tasks are the students being asked to do, and how does technology enhance or add to the lesson? And this is like kind of pie in the sky, like we can think of how can you leverage technology to plan and implement highly effective learning experiences that were previously inconceivable in a traditional classroom. And that really has to do with redefinition. So why did the district get these Chromebooks? Not so that students could just do worksheets on their Chromebook. I mean, there is a time for substitution, just like any lesson and when you're or any activity in school when you're thinking about like the web's depth of knowledge. Like there's time to be in DOK level 1. There's times that you'll be in the substitution level. But how else can we leverage our instruction and do things that we couldn't do before without our devices? So this is just an example to help us think about where different activities can land on the SAMR ladder and just to help us practice. So we're going to take Google Slides and move it up the ladder to all 4 steps. So substitution, technology acts as a direct substitute. So this is a substitute for non-tech. And I have an example up here, like a worksheet using Kami. So students have a worksheet online and they're just putting on text boxes with like the Kami extension and they're putting text boxes over the PDF. Essentially, they're doing a worksheet on a Chromebook. So this is an example using Google Slides. Students create a slides presentation to show their knowledge of compare and contrast. So they could create slides on the computer. They could create slides essentially using paper. They could just draw something out. They could do a poster. They could do something on paper and pencil. So that's the substitute. Next, we go to augmentation. So students use the tools and slides like spell check and insert images. So the technology is still a substitute, but we're using the tools that are within the technology, like spell check or insert image or a dictionary, using the tools that the technology provides. So we continue to move up the ladder to modification. So the technology allows for significant task redesign. So really the students are now doing a completely different task. So with Google Slides in this example, students use slides and Screencastify to explain how they solved a math problem. Screencastify is an extension in Chrome that allows the user to record their screen. So students could make slides with steps explaining how they solved a math problem, which strategy they used maybe, and then they use Screencastify over top of their slides to explain it to somebody who would then watch the video that they're creating. Okay, and finally is redefinition. So without the technology, this lesson would not be possible. So let's take that screencast that the students just made using Google Slides and Screencastify that they just made regarding their math problems. And now they're going to share the videos with other students in their class, maybe other students in the grade, at their school. In other schools, maybe the video will be shared on a website and sent home to parents so that they understand how to solve the math problem or help their students do their homework. So we're sharing out the video with other people so that they can learn as well. So without technology, this would not be possible. Okay, so here's an interactive slide. So drag your dot to how you feel, how you're feeling about using SAMR. Okay, so we have some people responding. Okay, some people still unsure, or let's keep going. All right, so let's keep going. So we just looked at SAMR as a ladder, like you move up and down the ladder. But Karen and I really love this poster, this graphic that shows SAMR as a swimming pool. So erase the lines and swim laps. So just like anything else. You can't spend all of your time in the shallow end. You can't spend all of your time in the deep end. So swim laps, move freely throughout the pool. Different lessons call for different things. So you'll be at different SAM or R at different times throughout the school year. You can't spend your whole lesson, your whole year in redefinition. There has to be other things that you're doing to maybe build up to this final project or something. But we like this because it shows that you can be anywhere throughout the pool. You don't, and it's not like a ladder that you move up and down, and it's not like you want to be at the top of the ladder all the time. You can be anywhere. Okay, so this is one of the interactive slides we wanted to show you. So see, you should have some boxes over here, and now you should be able to type or draw, like you can write, and see if you can fill in the boxes. So remember, they talked about SAMR as a ladder. So you start at the bottom and move your way up. So SAMR. So it should be a little easy, even if you just put the letters. All right. So we also wanted to talk about the digital use divide. So we hear about um, the and I'm forgetting the word, maybe Karen can jump if she remembers, but like how different areas and students like won't have access to technology the same way as other students. So that's not what we're talking about with this, especially right now for us in Red Clay schools. In the schools, all students have access to technology. So we're talking about how students use technology. So many times students are passively engaging in technology. So they're consuming instead of creating. They're watching YouTube videos. They're reading something. So that's just a passive use of technology. Um, and we'd like to see more of an active use of technology. So connecting with other people, designing, creating, interacting with experts. So that's how you could actively use technology. This graphic is actually from the U.S. Department of Educational Technology. So that's their website if you wanted to read more about it. Sometimes we do need passive use, just like we need substitution. But in our schools, we'd like to see more of a transition into transforming learning and students actively engaging in the use of technology. And that's why we use SAMR as a model, because it's how we're going to get there. We also wanted to show you, so we're talking about SAMR to evaluate our tasks and our instruction, but you could use Bloom's taxonomy as well. It's essentially the same thing. So even in the video, it showed that maybe above this line, analyzing, evaluating, creating, those fall in the transforming, modification, redefinition of learning. So even if you're still following along this model, you're going to be accomplishing the same thing. And then here's Webb's depth of knowledge wheel as well, and the 4 levels. And I just highlight words that kind of fall into the SAMR model. And then after I was highlighting them, I was thinking I could have really highlighted all of these. But so we kind of wanted to just show you that even though we're showing you a new model, if you're following one that you're traditionally used to using, you're doing the right thing. You're on the right track. Okay, so here's an interactive slide. How well do you understand what we just covered? Cool, and people are responding. All right. So we also wanted to highlight how you can use Schoology to support SAMR and follow along the ladder. And also blended learning. So you can use Schoology to accomplish the blended learning classroom environment as well. So you have grading groups and individually assign, the video and audio recorder, the microphone in Schoology so students can respond verbally. You have completion rules, media albums so that students can share. Portfolios is another great way for students to share internally, but also globally. Um, they're showing immediate feedback and assessments. So students put in an answer, and then after they submit their test, you would put in feedback. So based on their answer was X and they get Y as feedback. Like if they got the right answer, maybe there's something that could enhance their learning. If they got the answer incorrect, there's something that the students could do, like or watch or read about that then they could help them understand. And then embedding additional resources. So you could embed like a Padlet, a YouTube video. There's lots of things that you would use, like the embed code or the source code to input to put into Schoology. And so here we have some suggestions when using the SAMR model, especially because when you look at it, it could be a little overwhelming. But so we have some ideas that might help you. So start small, incorporate a few things at first, and then in time you can add to them or rework them. We really like this idea of like solving a problem. So, like, what barriers do you face when teaching a particular concept? Like, every year we get to um, learning about fractions, and every year the kids have problems with it. So, what could we do with technology to help overcome this? So, maybe just starting with that. Like every year, we know that we have a problem teaching this, and kids never understand this one concept. Let's just start with integrating technology when we're teaching this concept, and maybe students will understand better. And what is essential? All of your lessons still need to be standards based. We also find that when we tell teachers about SAMR, some of them really go all in, which is awesome, but then they just end up being in that the redefinition stage, and they lose sight of the purpose or the standards. So the students could be doing these amazing things, but there's not a purpose, or the students have lost sight of that and they don't really know what they're learning, or it's just not standards based.
And just to add to that, Courtney,
Yeah.
it's also kind of easy, especially when you're excited about technology, to jump in and find these really cool online projects with technology. And just as Courtney's saying, you kind of lose sight of what the actual standard is. So by the time you're done spending a week, 3 days, what have you, on building the most awesome website, the most awesome game, the most fill in the blank presentation, video. When you actually cut to the chase of what the standard is, you might have missed it completely. So it's real easy to get sucked into the coolness factor of technology, but it's always important to keep going back and finding that standard and making sure you're staying within the guidelines of the standard.
True. Right. So then we also say, just like what along with what Karen's saying, is that many things work fine at the substitution augmentation level, and you're going to need that. Like even in our example where we were talking about the students creating a video that describes how they answer a math problem. There's steps along the way to get to that larger project that you can't just skip over. So there are going to be times where we have to actually do the problem on paper and pencil, or we have to create our directions and slides. So those things may not be redefining, but in the end, they may be. And then just use SAMR like you use Webb's depth of knowledge or Bloom's to increase rigor, and thinking about how students can take ownership of their learning and creating authentic tasks. Those are always great things for students to do. And as Karen reminds me, it also helps to eliminate like academic dishonesty. So students aren't just taking a test, they're creating something brand new, and not they can't like copy off of each other really. Okay, so this is one more interactive slide. So what is one idea you are taking away from today's webinar? Okay, so I like that people will be trying new tools. They're going to be using SAMR to practice their tasks and think about their tasks, analyze them. So that's all terrific.